Too hard to make money this year. The industry is going bankrupt. No work at all. Stuck here. In my 50s, what can I do?
Really can't understand it. The city we live in seems to be sick. Every industry is in decline. Look, it used to be bustling with people. A big seafood restaurant. It's heartbreaking for outsiders to see so many restaurants closing down. So many shut down on this floor. It's really hard to keep running. I don't know what's going on now. Every industry is saying it's difficult.
Mooncake sales are going to collapse this year. Whatever means are tried, they just won't get people to buy them. This is the largest supermarket near my home. Incredibly busy. But in the mooncake section, not a single person.
This year, on October 6th, is the Mid-Autumn Festival for the Chinese. Vendors couldn't sell mooncakes, the quintessential food and gift of the festival. Many Chinese people believe that the country's economy has taken a sudden downturn over the past 2 years. Worst of all, both top CCP policymakers and ordinary Chinese realize that there's no way to reverse this decline. Over the past 3 decades, China's economy has risen rapidly. Now, for the CCP, it's game over. Why? This episode will analyze this topic. The economic path designed by the CCP-controlled regime has enabled the country to achieve the same level of industrialization and urbanization in just 4 decades that would typically take other countries 100 years. This was once used by the CCP to proclaim to the world its superior system proudly. However, few Western scholars realize that this path, at the same time, profoundly harmed the country and the vast majority of its people. This wound has never healed and has only worsened today. The fundamental principle of this path is that it essentially relies on exploiting the labor of the weaker classes to maintain its power. These weaker classes, in turn, are created by the CCP through its system. In the first phase, the CCP used its system to turn the country's largest group, the peasants, into the most vulnerable, exploiting them. In the second phase, it turned the vast majority of ordinary urban residents into a second-tier vulnerable group, exploiting them through real estate Ponzi schemes. If a country consistently relies on exploiting and plundering its vast population to achieve prosperity, then its prosperity is doomed to be short-lived. We will cover this topic in 2 episodes. In this episode, let's focus on China's peasant population. For the past 2 or 3 decades, the Beijing government has consistently claimed that 600 million of its 1.4 billion people are peasants. This group has been more commonly known as migrant workers. For a country to develop, it needs initial capital. This group provided the initial funding for China's rapid economic growth. However, consider the current situation of migrant workers. Many Chinese believe in reincarnation, the idea that after passing away, one will be reborn into the human world. When asked if they would like to come back to this world, the migrant workers responded as follows.
I don't want to come to this world. Being a human is too tiring. Working over 10 hours a day, too exhausting.
Next life, I won't come to this world. Too tiring and too harsh to be a human.
Unhappy. Have to work at this time. No work, no eat.
Peasants simply can't change their fate. What era is it now? The 21st century. Can hard work bring prosperity? Just surviving.
Unhappy. Too hard. People like me are miserable. Having a disabled child at home, he can't use his hands to eat by himself. I have to feed him and take care of him since he was born. If I had a choice, I wouldn't come here. Absolutely not. Too tiring. I have to get up before dawn to go to the construction site, return home under the starlight.
I don't know what happiness is or when I can rest. I've been working away from home since I was 15, and I've been working my ass off ever since.
China has a strict household registration system. People living in rural areas are generally unable to transfer their household registration to cities. When peasants move to cities for work, whether as manual laborers or as small business owners, their children are not allowed to attend urban schools. In other words, if you're born a peasant, Your children and grandchildren will be villagers. These children have only one way to escape their rural household registration: pass the college entrance examination and enroll in a university. After graduating, only if they find a job can they move the household registration through the employers who are authorized to grant household registration. However, rural schools lack educational resources, and only a small number of employers have the certification to offer household registration. So just a small number of rural residents can re-register this way. Look at this girl. Her mother left this poor rural home and never returned. Her father, the peasant worker, is now in the city, and she lives with her grandparents.
你们平时就吃这个吗？是的。这是什么呀？
Is this what you usually eat? What is this? Pickled vegetables. You don't crave anything else? Not bad, I'm used to it. Is this all you usually eat? Yes. Is there meat? No. Why? Because our family is struggling. My grandparents, my uncle, and I all live here. We only have one room.
就这一间房。就是一间房。
The gaps between urban and rural areas, as well as between social classes in China, are not the result of natural development. Instead, from the very beginning, the CCP has used institutional design to eliminate social equality and forcibly transfer the income of the majority of the lower-class people to another group. China's reform and opening up began in the late 1970s and early 1980s. So where did China's real capital come from in the 1970s and 1980s? At that time, there was no significant foreign investment, no mature financial markets, and fiscal revenue as a percentage of GDP was extremely low. China's industrialization and modernization required a vast pool of capital. Building factories, laying railways, expanding ports, and developing special economic zones all required enormous sums. Where did this money come from? Money didn't just appear out of thin air, it was squeezed from the peasants. The CCP, through its unified purchase and sale by the state system, purchased staple commodities like grain, cotton, and oil at very low prices. Then, through a planned pricing system, it maintained high prices for industrial goods, especially agricultural means of production and consumer goods. Regardless of how much farmers produced, any surplus grain had to be sold to the state, with no room for negotiation. Meanwhile, the industrial goods they needed for daily life were purchased at prices far above international prices. The difference flowed into the CCP's treasury and state-owned enterprises, ultimately becoming government investment. Throughout the 1980s, agricultural product prices were depressed, while industrial product prices were inflated. Peasants toiled in the fields, yet only sold their grain at extremely low prices. Yet they had to pay exorbitant prices for fertilizer, cloth, bicycles, and electrical appliances. The difference between selling low and buying high represents the nation's capital accumulation. In the early 1980s, the state purchase price for grain was approximately 0.13 yuan per jin, approximately 500 grams, while fertilizer cost 0.25 yuan per jin. A domestic bicycle cost 150 yuan, and a black and white television set was around 400 yuan. At the time, the average annual income for a peasant was just over 100 yuan, and he would have to save for 3 years to afford a television. The CCP's pricing system locked the rural people into a cycle of selling cheap and buying expensive, perpetuating the poverty line. After a year of hard work, a farmer's earnings, after paying grain taxes, were barely enough to buy a few decent industrial goods. Children went to school in patched clothes. A bicycle was a luxury at weddings. When televisions, refrigerators, and washing machines were increasingly common in urban areas, they were out of reach for rural residents. This is an 87-year-old peasant. In the early 1980s, he would have been in his 40s. To this day, he still needs to work.
Almost 90.
Still selling vegetables at such an old age?
Oh, nothing I can do. I sell a little, make a little money. I want to work, but no one wants me. Too old, useless.
Your clothes are all torn.
The clothes underneath are even more torn.
Even more torn.
No money.
This old man has no idea that his sweat is part of China's rapid infrastructure development. Statistics from the Ministry of Finance of China show that in 1978, national fiscal revenue was 113.2 billion yuan, accounting for only 31% of GDP. By 1984, fiscal revenue had grown to over 200 billion yuan. Between 1978 and 1984, capital construction investment within national fiscal expenditures grew by an average annual rate of over 15%, primarily funded by the surplus passively surrendered by peasants through the price system. It was precisely this disparity that the CCP fueled the rapid industrialization of the 1980s. By 1985, China's steel production exceeded 46 million tons, more than double that of 1978. Fertilizer production reached nearly 20 million tons, nearly doubling. Township and village enterprises flourished, absorbing tens of millions of surplus rural laborers. Furthermore, urban residents' living standards improved significantly, with refrigerators, color TVs, and washing machines becoming the new 3 major appliances. However, improvements in farmers' lives were extremely slow, and the urban-rural income gap widened further. In 1978, the urban-rural income ratio was 2.6 to 1. By 1985, it had widened to 3.1 to 1. Despite this enormous disparity in income between urban and rural residents, the CCP showed no desire to improve it. Instead, it continued to strengthen the urban-rural dual system. The household registration system locked villagers to the land, preventing large-scale migration to cities. This system served 2 purposes: ensuring a stable food supply in cities and ensuring a large influx of extremely cheap labor. Over the long term, this suppressed villagers' spending power, severely lagging behind rural modernization, and led to widespread underdevelopment in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. By the 1990s, the CCP gradually abolished its unified purchase and sale by state policy, and the prices of some agricultural products began to be market-based. No matter how much the labor of impoverished peasants was squeezed, it could not generate enough to satisfy the appetites of CCP officials at all levels of government, nor could it generate the massive capital needed to continue promoting the country's industrialization and urbanization. What was the solution? It quickly emerged: land finance. Who owns the peasants' land? It was called collective. This means that peasants' land does not possess the attributes of property, let alone ownership. The government monopolizes the primary land market, expropriating peasants' collective land at extremely low compensation prices, initially receiving only tens of thousands of yuan per mu. Rural collective land accounts for 45% of all state-owned land and is not allowed to circulate freely. Once this land is seized and converted to state land and auctioned to developers through bidding, the price per mu often reaches hundreds of thousands or even millions of yuan. The most powerful and predatory capital, bureaucratic capital, controls all resource-based assets, including peasants' land. CCP officials and agents at all levels, under the guise of a market economy, are actually robbing and plundering peasants' land. The difference, dozens of times, represents the most important source of revenue for local governments. In 2003, China's national land transfer revenue reached 590 billion yuan. By 2010, it had exceeded 3 trillion yuan, that is 420 billion US dollars. 15 years earlier, land revenue already accounted for nearly half of national fiscal revenue. In some cities, land transfer fees accounted for over 60% of local fiscal revenue. This means that more than half of local government's income comes from land sales. This money rapidly transformed the face of Chinese cities. With cash flow in hand, coupled with bank loans and supporting credit expansion, highways, subways, airports, central business districts, and university towns sprang up one after another. City skylines transformed dramatically in just 2 decades. Land finance not only supported urbanization, but also became the lifeblood of local government operations. Without this money, many cities' fiscal revenues would be insufficient to cover daily expenses, let alone large-scale infrastructure investment. Many landless peasants in the countryside have no livelihoods, and government compensation is often inadequate to sustain them in the long term. Therefore, they have no choice but to migrate to cities in search of work. Furthermore, Urban jobs offer higher incomes than farming, prompting those who still have some land to choose to be migrant laborers. This has led to widespread abandonment of farmland. Rural migrant workers have become the cheapest labor force in China's urbanization process.
Are you working? Can you do dirty or strenuous work?
Yes, I can.
3 strong men are needed. 3. You have to be able to do dirty or strenuous work.
Yes,
Can you do it?
yes, I really can.
Peasant workers not only support the real estate boom, but also contribute to China's competitiveness in manufacturing exports. China's rise to become the world's factory is the product of the brutal exploitation of its 600 million peasant workers, who were forced to relinquish their rights. The CCP's land-based fiscal system drained the value of the peasants' land, while peasants migrated to cities to provide low-cost labor. These two forces combined to propel China onto the fast track of industrialization and urbanization. As a result, even today, peasant workers migrate to cities but remain unincorporated. The household registration system prevents them from enjoying the benefits of urban education, healthcare, and social security. Behind the prosperity of cities lie hundreds of millions of peasant workers living in sheds, working for the cities but not belonging to them. This vast, underprivileged labor force is the lifeblood of China's urbanization, who have been denied the benefits of the country's rapid economic development. The word retirement doesn't exist in the dictionary of Chinese peasants. Their average monthly pension is $14.
How do you think ordinary people?
Too hard, too much suffering. Unlike those who receive pensions, who have everything they want. If we don't work, we won't have anything to eat.
Compared to this emphasis, how happy are the lives of the various interest groups in the CCP?
My neighbor retired from the Tobacco Bureau this year. He received a pension of $1,995 plus various living allowances of over $140. He also received over $280 in benefits and a year-end bonus. He took home about $2,670. Tobacco Bureau cadres receive a pension of $2,670. It would take 30 young people paying into Social Security to support him, and if this person lives to 90, and at today's prices, his total pension will be $960,000.
40 years have passed since the CCP's reform and opening up, and peasant workers remain at the bottom of society.
Can't find a way to make a living. It's bad. No choice but to return hometown.
It will be difficult for us to find a job. The poor won't be hired.
In today's economic recession, many peasant workers are finding work on the city streets. They can no longer find stable, long-term jobs, and instead try their luck on a day-to-day basis.
I want 3 female workers. $42 a day. Don't push me, don't push me. Okay. I only want 3 female workers. How come so many people? I'm surrounded. Don't pull me, don't pull me. I only want female workers, only female. I've made my choice. Everyone stop fighting. Go, go, go! This is the first time I've encountered this situation. I am surrounded, but the car can only take 3 people. What time do you usually wait here for work?
At 4 o'clock every day.
Aunties, are you afraid of being tired?
We're used to it. We've been doing it for decades. We can do any job.
Just be sure you're not afraid of hardship or fatigue. Just follow my instructions.
Don't worry, we've always worked on construction sites. That's all about the relationship between peasants and the Chinese economy. We'll analyze how land finance exploits urban residents in the next episode.